All right, we're recording.
Yes, sir.
Welcome everyone to the Rink Rat Report podcast. As always, joined by Jason today.
How's it going? I think we got guns out today. Holy smokes. I
Yeah,
didn't get the memo.
free
Like, what's going
agency.
on? Do you want me
No,
to just freaking
I
do
don't think
this
I've
or what?
recorded one episode on video with sleeves on. I don't.
So now you just can't forever. So good luck in the
Yeah,
winter.
well, there was
But
one we recorded 2 episodes in one night or something, and I actually had to change the sleeveless I was wearing. Like it doesn't. I don't want it to look like you just wear the same shirt every day. Anyways, as we mentioned, we are on YouTube. You can see our ugly mugs on YouTube on video. Please subscribe. Please press the subscribe button. We saw a lot of views last episode actually, but not a lot of people were subscribed. So like you're just kind of taking money out of our pockets when you do that. So just stop being selfish and hit the subscribe button, please, and thank you. So today we're going to be talking about free agents. We're recording this on Tuesday, June 27th, the day before the NHL entry draft. If you haven't heard our episode, Sam Cosentino teeing up the NHL draft, give it a listen. The link will be somewhere on this video, or it's just our last podcast episode, right?
yeah, it's click the top right hand corner. It'll be there. I'll put it there. Don't worry. And just one thing, 99.5. Just we're an analytics podcast. We like to lean towards analytics, and the YouTube analytics tell us that 99.5% of the people who viewed our last video are not subscribed. So if you're one of the 0.5 who subscribe, why don't you just drop a comment down below and let us know? And if you're not, hit the subscribe button. It's free. If you like our content, you'll get it recommended more. Sometimes it happens to me all the time. I watch a YouTube video, I enjoy it, and I lose out on the creator because I don't get them recommended to me for the next couple months. Then I see them a couple months on the road. I'm like, shit, why haven't I subscribed to them? So make sure you subscribe to us, guys. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps us out a lot. So
Exactly. So let's get into it. Free agents. We're going to be talking about the forwards today. Later in the week, we're going to be talking about defense and goaltenders as well. But today, we're just going to stick with the forwards. Who's out there? I think even some trade pieces that are kind of rumored to be available as well.
Well, quickly before I cut you off, a couple of trade pieces, because this, like as we'll see as we go through this video, the free agent class for forwards is very, very thin. So, and the Leafs have a ton of needs to fill. So,
yeah, a lot of guys to re-sign or sign, a lot of guys to kick to the curb too. In terms of like free agents that they're not going to bring back, hopefully. But one thing I wanted to bring up, it was said like around the league, and it's unanimously known like this is a weak free agency class, so we're going to see a lot more trades apparently, and so that's where we've seen Ryan Johansson to Colorado from Nashville for pretty much nothing. I'm like it was Alex Galchenyuk who they're not even going to sign. We actually saw Alex Newhook to the Montreal Canadiens for the 31st and 37th pick. The trade market is heating up. Oh, Tyler Toffoli, how can I forget that one? There's a bunch more. Anyway, so we're going to see a lot more trades as opposed because you're not going to be able to fill those top end needs in free agency. Let's get real, right?
Yeah.
But there are some decent pieces in free agency.
For sure.
Right? Yeah. So we're going to take a look at those guys.
Can I quickly just say something? This might be a bananas theory, but like I wonder if this is a reflection of like teams wanting to be good never ended, like that teams that wanted to be good over the last couple of years that never were able to do it. Now they're going through the period where they're legit tanking, right? So they have there are teams out there who signed some long-term deals that probably didn't fit the direction they should have been going in. Yeah, exactly. Kevin Hayes. And now we're getting to the point where these players are now on the way out towards the end of their contract and they're bad and these teams are still bad. So what are they going to do with them? They're going to ship them out. So I don't know if that makes sense. Just anyways, but yeah, bro, that's like the sine wave of the NHL, you know what I mean?
Exactly. So let's get into it. Do you want to start with the center position?
Well, first, I think we should address like what
they
Leafs need, right? Right now we have, we did a great podcast breaking down what I'm going to plug this with Kevin Petty. We did it a couple of weeks ago, breaking down kind of what the Leafs need, who we should bring back, and like how they should construct their roster. More so of like the archetype of players, not so much the specific players. And Kevin gave some great insights on on some specific players as well, but he gave some great insights on what he thinks the future of this roster should look like. And the biggest thing we notice when looking at it is that we have like a couple wingers signed and we have 2, maybe 1 centerman signed, depending on how you look at it. So obviously we have Austin Matthews, who signed right now as center. John Tavares, that's the big question, right? Is he going to play wing? Is he going to play center?
We're kind of divided on this one.
Yeah.
I think
So
he's going to start the season at center. I'm very confident he's going to start the season at center. I don't foresee the Leafs making that substantial of a trade for a centerman that's going to be able to fill the 2C role. Like maybe you think, okay, Ryan O'Reilly's can play the 2C. That's still kind of a lower end 2C to me, but he is still a very good player, but he's not an elite second line center. He's a pretty good second line center right now at this point in his career. Then you got to fill the third line center position. Okay, can you trade for a third line center? Maybe. Can you sign one? Outside of Ryan O'Reilly at the center position, I don't really see much. Like the ones we have listed here, like I think Max Domi's more of a winger than he is a centerman. On top of that, who else we got? Like Pierre Engvall is available, but again, he's also a winger in my opinion. That's kind of it.
Yeah, there's not that many centermans available in true. I think that's the best way to put it. There's no true centermans that are available in free agency, and the few that are available, I think will probably get overpaid, as we're going to get into a little bit later. But yeah, so if we're going to attack the centers, like the Leafs need, like the John Tavares thing. I understand where you're coming from there, but I think what's important to pay attention to is that Sheldon Keefe is coming back. So I think the vision of this team and the vision of how the roster is constructed from Sheldon Keefe's end as the coach is going to be consistent with what we saw last year. Does that make sense? So I think towards the end of the season, we saw Tavares playing on the wing. Mind you, we had Ryan O'Reilly. So you're right. That is a major factor, right? Were we able to do that because we had the luxury of having Ryan O'Reilly, or were we able to do that because or did we do it because we felt we needed to have John Tavares? I think that's the biggest question here. And I don't know if we're going to come up with an answer. So at the very least, the Leafs need for sure 1 centerman, maybe 2 centermen, and potentially 3 centermen if John Tavares is not in the vision of the team. He's not playing center. We might need 3.
And why do they need the third one?
So no, you think they need 2, maybe 1. So who's the guy you think that can come in?
Well, I was thinking Pontus Holmberg is going to play 4th line center. I think it's kind of a lazy fill-in my opinion. You did say, hey, I think they could probably fill it better elsewhere. I mean, the better elsewhere is that who was the guy that got traded half retained at $900K from Arizona to Bukestad? Like, is Bukestad a better option than Holmberg? Yes, but is he going to be cost effective? I don't know. Probably not after the season he had.
Yeah, probably not. So I see what you're saying there. But my only thing with, again, I'm just going off the same thing that I talked about with John Tavares here is what was the roster? What was the team saying to us during last season? The team was saying to us they liked Pontus Holmberg. They liked his offensive upside in the bottom 6, but they did not like his defensive play and his defensive efficiency, I guess. The best way to put it. That was the weakest part of his game. Now, has he improved since then? I can't tell you. I haven't watched any AHL games, so I honestly don't know. But I think with the way this team is constructed, I think in the bottom 6, they probably want some better defensive centers than like offensive centers. So maybe we don't see Holmberg up in the lineup to start the season, but maybe we do, and maybe he's the 13th forward. So I don't know. Again, we're looking at I think it's fair to say we need 2 NHL centermen, potentially 1 in the top 6, but for sure we need 2. I think that's fair. Because at the very least, it'd be a 13th forward kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I like that.
Yeah. So then
we had one disagreement. You were saying, oh, maybe you can get a utility guy, a guy that can play wing and center. I don't really like that because when you look at the options, like Evan Rodriguez is a guy that has played center and wing. He did not play center last year, though. From what I was trying to find out, I didn't see a whole lot of center from him last year. I couldn't find a game that he played center. Pierre Engvall is like another example of that. Alex Kerfoot's another example of that. Like, how much did you really like those last 2 guys I mentioned at center versus at wing?
I didn't like them at all, honestly. Like Pierre Engvall, I thought it wasn't too bad. I think the speed helps us out a lot because that's kind of the centerman we're going to be looking for. We want a guy with speed like that. But
I think they're not smart enough players to be able to utilize their speed properly at center. And it's more so, this is the same thing as Rodriguez, I believe. I think I'm just making an assumption where they're better on the wing because of their speed, they're able to chase the puck more. They're able to be that puck transporter kind of thing. They can't do it as effectively at center, in my opinion. So for me, you have to find like the only one I think that was interchangeable that was decent was Noel Achari from what I've seen
fair
so
enough.
far. I could be proven wrong though.
Intuitively, that reasoning makes sense to me, at least. That makes sense. So yeah, I can see that. So but you mentioned quickly before we push off to wingers, you mentioned the guy Alex Kerfoot. We just got word today, so it kind of caught us a bit off guard as we're recording this. But the Leafs are kicking tires on Kerfoot and David Kampf. Now, is that a part of the process? I'm not sure. Maybe it's Treliving's process saying we got to go coach first, talk to Matthews, Nylander, figure out what they're looking for. Then from there, after we've talked to them, we'll look at our current UFAs and see if we can resign any of them. And maybe that right there is a reflection of what we just talked about, how thin the center market is. We weren't happy with those guys, but really, who else is there available? Would you be okay if they brought back Kerfoot or Kampf? I know we said like no to Kerfoot, but what about
depends on the dollar amount. Like, I mean, David Kampf at 1.5 again, fourth line center.
Yeah,
sure. I mean, kind of worked here and there. I mean, it was noticeable. I thought it wouldn't be, but it was noticeable that once they took Pierre Engvall away from David Kampf, he was noticeably less effective, though. Right. So can Sam Lafferty, screw his brain? Who's the one from Lion Witch in the Wardrobe or whatever the fuck
I don't know.
Movie's called where he doesn't have the brain? Is that the Tin Can Man or something?
Isn't that
or Scarecrow?
That's not the Lion, the Witch in the Wardrobe. That's the Wizard of Oz.
The Lion, the fucking
the Lion, the Scarecrow, and the Tin Man. The Tin Man doesn't have a heart.
That's the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, the Scarecrow doesn't have a brain. I think.
Yes, there
if
we
I
are.
only had a brain. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, was it David
Witch in the Wardrobe?
David Kampf is the Scarecrow, and
no, Sam Lafferty is the Scarecrow.
Sam Lafferty is the Scarecrow. Okay, I see.
He has the wheels to be able to move the puck up the ice, but will he?
Who knows?
We'll see.
Let us know who you think the Tin Man is. Who that's.
Oh.
What is that? Is that a heart?
No heart.
No heart, and then oh gosh, who's the lion?
The lion is a cow. No courage. Oh,
yeah, the coward. So who's the coward and who lacks heart? That's funny. I'm gonna laugh at these replies. Anyways, so moving off of so David Kampf, Kerfoot probably know David Kampf. What do you think? Like, what do you give us like a percentage chance?
Like if they both resign for 1.5, like I think that's manageable, right?
I agree. Yeah. I think Kerfoot's biggest problem is that he's paid like $3.5 million.
3.5, and he couldn't produce to that level. Like at this point, like I think it's just a lot of like, wow, like you're bringing this guy back again. Like you wouldn't get rid of this guy to be able to upgrade, kind of thing. Like I think it's less so about the player and what he does, and more so just like the name and the salary kind of thing. But like at a cheap contract, sure, I'd bring him back. I mean, like
give us if the you were to switch out players right now.
I wouldn't want them. I wouldn't want David Kampf above 1.5.
Term.
But then the thing is, for 2 years. But then the thing is, what else is out there? So if you go to like 1.75 maybe for Kampf, like I just don't think his offensive game is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Like you cannot understate that. Yeah. Like if you were to switch out Kerfoot for Rodriguez, I think Rodriguez is going to outprice us here. But like they're kind of the same in both that like Rodriguez has some speed, some playmaking ability, but absolutely cannot finish, just like Alex Kerfoot. They were both at the bottom of the league in terms of finishing ability, especially at 5-on-5. I have the number right here if I'm able to get it up. Yeah. Shooting percentage, Evan Rodriguez at 5-on-5 was 412th out of 593 eligible skaters. And Alex Kerfoot, I believe, was 413th. So just to give you an idea of what their finishing ability is, it's both pretty terrible. So,
yeah. So,
but like, it's just a different name, which is, I think it's kind of funny. I think Evan Rodriguez is a better player, but just to bring in a different name, I think would ease a lot of people's complaints.
I feel that, but like hearing about it now, that's not like how you want to operate as a team, right? Just
No,
because the
no.
guys is different, and like you're kind of swinging me back towards Alex Kerfoot, which is absolutely insane to me
Cheap
because
though.
I
Cheap.
yeah, oh, of course, I would not touch him over what Camp. I think what Camp got on his last deal is the perfect type of deal that we would want to give Alex Kerfoot. Now, I think we will probably get priced. Like I think he's gonna ask for more because I mean, if we look at his point total, like he put up
what is it,
51 points
84, 83 over the past 2 years?
84 in the past 2 years, and he played all 82 games, which people are going to value. And on top of that, like, I mean, this year he has.
When you look at that raw point total, that's pretty good. That's way above 1.5, 175, right? But when you think about it, also like Rodriguez to go to a contender, albeit he had 43 last year, and he only went for 1 year, 2 mil.
Yeah. So
right.
That's true.
So it's going to be another thing of like, how much does the market value non-scoring wingers? Like, remember last year, Zach Aston Reese was supposed to go for like an okay amount of money, put up good defensive numbers, and he ended up having to go into camp on a PTO.
Yeah.
So I think like the market will dictate how much some of these guys make. I really do wonder what Alex Kerfoot's going to make though. But like, again, if you can bring him back for cheap, like 2 mil, would you do 2? 1 year, 2?
I wouldn't do 1 year, 2. Honestly,
No?
I know I'm like penny pinching here, but like,
yeah,
I'd rather just take a stab at like 2 random. I'd rather take a stab at 2 like not very good UFA centers. And I know we said the list was thin, but I'd rather do that or even make a trade for like 2 centermen under $1 million and try them out than pay Kerfoot at 2. Does that make sense? Maybe like.
Yeah. Before we get into our next segment, we want to give our shout out to today's sponsor, Manscaped. If you haven't heard already, it's smooth sack summer. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're scaped from pubes to bum. That's right. This is the summer to keep your balls cool while still looking hot with Manscaped. The leaders in the below the waist grooming are making sure we all have a ball this summer by giving our pants partners everything they need to stay fresh. Dive headfirst into smooth sack summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the promo code RINKRAT. That is RINKRAT. Now back to the show. Yeah. So would you rather Kerfoot or Max Comtois? And for those individuals that are listening to this, 100% Comtois. Comtois, I think over the past 2 years has about 37 combined points. He doesn't seem to be creating very much offense on his own. I think he only has 17 goals over the past 2 years. Hits a ton, very big body. I haven't done a deep enough dive into him and seeing what's wrong with him yet because he really did fall off after 2 seasons ago. But again, like the numbers have just not really been there for him. Fell out of favor in Anaheim. Had a high qualifying offer, so they let him walk. But
I would take Kerfoot 10 times, but can Comtois play center? I don't see him listed as a center.
No, he's a winger.
Yeah, so as a
so
pure
you're talking
winger,
about center.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, guys.
I was talking about Kerfoot versus Comtois as a winger.
I mean, no, I think I would still take Kerfoot probably over him if the cost is equal for 100%. Like I wouldn't.
It's a big project. That's the thing. Like
for me, Comtois could just be like a guy like I don't know if this is like a fair comparison, but a guy like Alex Galchenyuk, and I think that's even like generous to Comtois. Like Galchenyuk had a better pedigree and had a couple better seasons, but like as he tailed on towards his career, he didn't look good. Comtois is 24 now, and he's like, I mean, he really only had 1 good season under his belt. He struggles to make a lineup in Anaheim, and I know he wasn't given good wingers, so that's the guy.
So my other thing when I looked at it, like his over the past 2 years, his 23 and his 24-year-old years. And I think that was a combined 111, 112 games played. His most common line mate was Troy Terry, very good player, but only at 350 minutes. Like that's not a lot. That shows a lot of line juggling. And even this year, I think his most common line mate was Ryan Strome at 200 minutes. Like that's a lot of line juggling. It's kind of shows that they weren't able to get like any good chemistry going with anyone. Like I'm interested to see how the market will value Comtois. I think there is something there, definitely. Like we saw some good junior production. we saw some good production early on. We saw some good promise early on. Just what happened?
He's gonna get league
Right?
min. He will 100% be a guy who's getting league min.
League min.
Yeah, I don't know what
Wow.
like. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's. Maybe I'm undervaluing him. I'm not like. He's 24 now. I feel like it's tough to reference what a guy's done in junior at 24.
Well, not 24. What about a 22, 21 or whatever? He did, his shooting percentage went crazy that year. Like that is something to look at where he had 16 goals, but
I mean,
is
yeah,
there something there
16
maybe?
goals 2 years ago in 55 games. Like could be a shooting percentage bump. Like
I think
I
it
don't know.
was,
I'm not.
but yeah.
I
You're
I
not
think
big
we've
on Comtois?
not really, not really.
Hmm.
But let's maybe take a look at more. You want, I guess, like that kind of. That's kind of
Do you want to
who.
Dennis Gurianov? I don't believe he was qualified by the
Oh,
Montreal
you're gonna, yeah.
Canadiens.
I get another guy who he has center. He can play center. No,
I don't think so.
thought he was.
I only saw wing kind of thing. Take a look, but in terms of Dennis Gurianov, from what I saw, like this is a very interesting player. Same sort of thing as Max Comtois. Came in as a pretty highly touted prospect. Like Gurianov was a first round pick. He came in, started off pretty well. His 22-year-old year, listen to these numbers. I have them off the top of my head too. He had 20 goals and his 22-year-old year. Then COVID shut everything down. And in the bubble playoffs, when the Dallas Stars went to the Stanley Cup Finals, he had 17 points in 27 games with 9 goals. Great. Like that's very good at 22 years old for a team that's not that high scoring. That's pretty darn good. And then the 2 seasons after that, the season after that, he played pretty well. I think he 30 some odd points in 50 some odd games. The season after that, 30 points in 71 games, I think. And then this year just fell off the rails. Like, but he's big and he's fast. Those are the 2 things that I noticed instantly from him. But again, another player that I have to take a deeper look into what the hell happened to this guy. Yeah, why is he a free agent at age 24, 25?
For me, this is like an appeal to authority thing. But if I trust the Dallas Stars scouting staff, they are honestly one of the best drafters and developers, I think, in the league. They have a really good eye for talent. And I think if they think that Gurianov couldn't fit their team, which is not really that deep, like they don't have the deepest team. Maybe they felt like he didn't fit their bottom 6 mold of like a defensive player. They felt like he wasn't good enough offensively to fit in their top 6, not good enough defensively to be in their bottom 6. So maybe that's why they shipped him out. But I'm going to appeal to authority here and say that I'm not interested in him just based off the fact that I trust the Dallas scouting staff and I trust Dallas's process. Maybe that might be wrong, but that's like my point of view on those 2.
So you wouldn't take a stab at Comtois or Gurianov?
I wouldn't take a stab at either of those guys. No.
What's the max you would pay for someone like that, a project kind of player like that?
Under $1 million and under at 1 year. I don't think that it's like, have the Leafs really ever taken on a guy like that? Like, I don't know. I don't really think so, right? The closest is Galchenyuk. We acquired him in a trade, and that was because the guy was going on waivers anyways. And on top of that, it was like a weird COVID year where the talent pool that was available to the Leafs at the trade deadline was limited. So I don't really think we're in the position right now to take on projects. I think we need some sure things. I think there's going to be more than a few available pieces that are bargain players, but not so much prospects. Or sorry, bargain players, not so much projects.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. They're both players that, like, I think what you have to realize with a lot of the players we're going to mention, fit is going to be very important because they're not like the players that can create offense on their own are not going to be available and are very good players and are going to command a lot of money. Like think about guys that can create offense on their own. William Nylander, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, like even John Tavares at 5-on-5 kind of struggles to do that right now. Right. Yeah. So fit is going to be very important with some of these players. I'd have to take a deeper look. Is there a fit with Gurianov? Is there a fit with Max Comtois in this roster? Where is that fit and how much can you allocate to that, right? Because, I mean, we did say the Leafs forwards kind of look slow against Florida, right?
Yeah.
like maybe, but like I don't think Comtois is a slow player from the limited amounts that I've seen, and Guryanov's got some good jump to him. So, is there something there? I'd have to take a deeper look into it, but I was very interested to hear your perspective on we're not in a position to take on a project like, but I do think like Chicago. Why would Chicago not?
Oh, 100%. And that's, I think that's part of the same thing
Right.
where like we saw, I think it was did Strome not get qualified last year? I think it was Strome, right? 2 years ago, maybe.
Strome did not get qualified by the Chicago Blackhawks.
And
Correct.
Sonny Milano as well didn't get
So Sonny
qualified
Milano didn't get qualified by the Anaheim Ducks. Correct.
they both went to the Blackhawks, and they both got like a decent penny because the Blackhawks
They both went to the Capitals.
Sorry, Capitals. Yes, they both got a pretty penny because the Capitals were able to kind of do that, right? And I don't
Capitals
think
gave Strome 5x5, which is just to me way too much. I'm sorry, I liked him. Dylan Strome's a decent player, but I don't think he's worth that much.
Yeah, of course.
And then they gave Sonny Milano 3 years, 1.5 per, which both good for them. Both were not qualified, and both have some money in the bank now. But on a contending team, I don't think they're worth that much.
Exactly, and that's the same way I see these guys, but they're worse. They're worse than both those guys by like I think a fair stretch, because at least these guys had a track record of producing points. Both of them had a much higher pedigree. So yeah, I'm not really interested in seeing those guys, and they're probably going to go to a much worse team and will get probably paid better. It all depends what I guess what they want to do, and I don't know. I could see them not even like I don't know. They don't.
Both are going to be looking for ice time, I think.
That's the biggest thing. So, and
like Guryanov went to Montreal and got put with just guys that I don't think he would be a good fit with at all. He was like, I watched a couple shifts. I really didn't need to watch more of them. I will say that again. But he was on the ice with Drouin and Josh Anderson. It just looked like a chase the puck fest.
Again, if you can't make the worst team in the NHL, how are you going to make the Leafs? So that's that's the way I see it. I don't know. But like if we look at, I think we kind of established who we were looking at centers. We didn't really establish the Leafs wingers, right? I think, but it's pretty obvious. We have like five-ish wingers that are already locked in, depending on what we do with Sam Lafferty. It's probably 6. Matthew Nyes, William Nylander, Mitch Marner, Kelly Yarncrook, Sam Lafferty. So that's 5. Then assuming we're probably.
And then I think Matthew Nyes.
Yeah, so I think did I not mention him? I counted him, but maybe I didn't mention him out loud. But probably Nick Robertson we're going to take a stab at. So that's like
he'll be
6.
there for camp.
Yeah, that's like 6, 5.
So how many
wingers.
we have left?
3. There's only 8 wingers that you can start. It's still a good amount.
Still a good amount to fill.
And like, do you want to re-sign any of these UFAs here? Like Bunting, I think we all agreed we're passing on him.
I think we're priced out.
On, like the only guy
Aston Reese, you don't really need.
We talked about Kerfoot a bit, and we talked
maybe
about
maybe a Chari,
yeah. But it depends. I don't know. It all depends. I think the Leafs are gonna have to take a look and try and acquire like a big fish. And that kind of brings us to the next point. And I think we should take a look at like the free agent big fishes. And I've circled a bunch. So at center, like we said before, the biggest problem is that there's no centers available. I have 2 centermen that are considered big fish to me, and I consider those guys top 6. Not like honestly being generous with one of them top 6 forwards. I don't think Domi's a top 6 forward, so that's one of them.
I don't think Domi's a top 6 center. I think he can play possibly like top 6 winger, maybe, but I think he's probably better suited at the wing.
Yeah, but Ryan O'Reilly is obviously the other one without bearing the lead. So yeah, like at center, if John Tavares is going to be playing on the wing and we want to use free agency to address that, it's Ryan O'Reilly or no one else. So that's gonna be interesting. What number would you take Ryan O'Reilly back at right now? 5 by how many years? You think?
I think he'll go for market value is probably at 5-ish, 3 years. I'd say.
I'm just trying to see. I think so. The Daily Faceoff projected him to get 3 by 5.5. Do you think would you take that?
I think that's why I saw that. I would hope that they could get it done for a little bit lower than that. I've seen a lot of people hoping 3.5. Guys, do you see how much he went for at the deadline? He's still got market value.
Yeah,
there's no chance 3.5. I think he's going to go for 5, and I think you do kind of. I would like Ryan O'Reilly back, right?
Yeah, and I guess the centermen that are, I guess Domi is like, I don't even think he's a natural centerman and fits on a team as a centerman. So I'm just going to pass on him. There's a couple centermen in the trade market though that I think we can acquire that would be like big fish for any top 6 guys where if you acquire them, you move Tavares to the wing and you're able, or you at least have the luxury of moving John Tavares to the wing. And those guys that I've circled are Elias Lindholm, Mark Scheifele, Michael Backlund, and the last one, I'm not sure if he's going to get moved, but the team is kicking tires on him, Evgeny Kuznetsov. Any of those guys pique your interest? Any of those guys, like what are you, are those guys, are you in on any of those guys where you think the Leafs should be over the moon to get them?
Over the moon. I just don't know about the cap space, and I don't know about like next season, what, like come July 1st, are we going to get like a big present in the morning of Matthews and Nylander signing, and then that'll make things more clear? And then we have like an hour to make predictions before they actually make signings and shit. That's where I like obviously you'd love someone like Kuznetsov. Like the issue is you're not going to be able to resign Lindholm, who was a great player, I think, too. That would be a very, very ideal 2C. If you can't get O'Reilly, like, yeah, Lindholm at 2C, are you kidding me? That'd be fantastic. Kuznetsov, again, that's another fantastic player, especially at that price. I think could be pretty good too. But like, you're not gonna. I look at this list and I'm like, how are they going to extend 30-year-old Mark Scheifele? He's probably gonna go for, like, how much does he go for? One guy you have in here, actually, Konechny, I would really like.
Yeah, that's fair. I was more focusing
at 5.5 for 2 more years.
Yeah.
That's this season and next, right?
Yeah. I was just focusing on center for a bit there when I posed that question. That's fine. Because but yeah, let's go to Mantha and talk about some wingers that, because I think these are all the big fish, I think, right?
Okay.
So yeah, Konechny. I like Konechny as well because that's the type of guy I think who can fill a bunting role kind of and be pesky. And it seems like from the word of, or sorry, not the word, but from Boston.
I think he's way better than Bunting.
Oh, for sure. He's a better player, but I think he has that pesky nature that I think we all want in the top 6. Like he's big and he's not big, but he's like big enough. He can hit.
He's 5'10", but he's like shaped like a bowling ball.
Wide, right? Like he's thick.
Yes.
He's like a Gudis type, like build. Gudis might be shorter. I don't know. That guy's not that tall. Anyways, Konechny.
Wow.
Yeah,
I actually didn't realize that.
But yeah, Konechny is, I think he's a great acquisition. 5.5 by 2. I think I agree with you. It's a great deal.
That's the one where I'm like, wow, like I would deeply consider giving up a pretty substantial amount for him.
So what would you give up? So would you give up a first for him? Because the way I rationalize these things, it's like this upcoming trade deadline is going to suck because we're going to see all the trades happening. It seems like we're going to see all these trades happening in the offseason, right?
Yeah.
So like I could care less if we have, I think we have our 2025 first. I could care less if we move that now because we're probably going to move the trade deadline anyways, right? So let's move it now to get a player that we can like fit under our belt and get to know the team and get to work with the team well. Because the biggest problem with when we required O'Reilly is he didn't have enough time to fit and gel with the team. I don't think. He got hurt, and that
especially
was
the injury too.
Exactly. So let's get ahead of the 8 ball here. Let's use our assets right now to acquire guys, and let's have a quiet deadline to just kind of fix stuff around the edges. Because I think last year the issue with the team was that we didn't address our biggest needs until the trade deadline. I think those needs need to be addressed in the offseason this year. And with the uncertainty of the Matthews and Nylander deal, we kind of have like a little 1-year window where we can take on a couple bigger deals. So so Konechny,
that's the one that sticks out to me. I really like Travis Konechny. I like the offensiveness, his offensive ability, as you mentioned, adds some peskiness to the lineup too. I mean, I think he put up a ton of points this year. I don't have it in front of me, but that's the one. In terms of the available trade targets, it makes so much sense. The contract is manageable at 5.5, which is seemingly what Bunting's going to be getting in the open market.
Yep.
His age, he's only a 97 born, which still plenty of prime left in him. I think I mentioned the contract length left. He's still got 2 seasons, which is tremendous value there. And I mean, the Flyers are trying to rebuild. Everyone knows it. Like, how great value can a rebuilding team kind of squeeze out of a player like that? I'm not too sure. I mean, remember, like, what did we get for Phil Kessel, who put up like 92 points with the Penguins at one point?
Kasperi Kapanen, a first, and like bunch of B level prospects, maybe. I think. Do we even get a first? I don't even think we got a first. I think we just got Kapanen.
Did we get a first?
I don't know.
I think we did.
Oh, we got a no. You know, we got a first and we flipped it for
and
Anderson.
we traded for Anderson.
So
correct.
At the time, Kapanen was probably
Kapanen was pretty
A level prospect.
He went in the low part of the first round, and then he played in the AHL. I think, or I don't know. He was doing okay. He was valued as not
it
A minus level prospect kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, if we're just gonna look in his rookie season, I don't know how good the SM Liga was or like what you'd want an 18-year-old to do.
It's a pretty good league.
Put up 21 points in 41 games as an 18-year-old. I think that's pretty valuable, and for the Leafs to acquire him and essentially.
But then the Leafs had to retain on Kessel too.
Yeah, they did. I forgot about that.
So, you know.
Yeah, so we got a first and
I don't know. The point I was trying to like kind of maybe I'm trying to stretch it and I'm making shit up. I'm pulling shit out of my ass here is that like you could possibly get better value out of Philadelphia because of the position they're in. So like what would get it done? I'm a little bit unsure. Like you would 100% need to include a first.
Let's say a first and a third, and like
I think
one of those Finnish guys. Or sorry, are they Finnish?
Topi Niemela?
Yeah, like or the forward. What's his name? Ronnie Hirvonen. First, third, Hirvonen, and then like some AHL level players.
I think a first, third. I don't know how much value Niemela has around the league. I wonder how much Robertson still has. I'm a little unsure. It's probably at its lowest right now, but I don't know if you could do it for that 1,000%.
Yeah,
I think it will be more.
I think I'm in the same boat. The only pushback I'm going to have here for Konechny before we move off him is just I don't know if his defensive upside is there. He played on Philadelphia, and I understand like these models always are. It's almost impossible, I think, to isolate for teammate impact and like team impact.
Yes.
So I think like I think maybe if it might be undervalued in the models, but like respectively what he like his expected numbers against on a volume model are not good.
I swear Jonathan Huberdeau had like good defensive numbers this year, according to Jay Fresh or something like that. Meanwhile, he was like last in the league last year.
Yeah,
you got to remember there are 4 other skaters on the ice that impact that.
Absolutely. So that's why I'm a little skeptical of it. But at the same time, I don't hate it.
That'd be a good player to dive.
Exactly. So let's just quickly take a look through the other big fish right wingers I have on our trade board. I'm looking at Alex DeBrincat. His qualifying offer is at $9 million. We talked about Konechny, a guy who's kind of similar to Kuznetsov. Mantha, who I think would be pretty good. It might be a cheap ad because he only has 1 year left at $5 million, and you might be able to get.
In my opinion, he'd be like a dump. He has not played a full season in God knows how long, and look at his point totals each year. Like he's been very injury prone.
Okay, interesting. I didn't really consider that, honestly.
And from what I've seen in his numbers, he's been very injury prone.
Oh my goodness!
And it's not been over a point every other game, I don't think.
Yeah, he's struggled to be healthy. So that's
why would we pay anything for that?
That's very fair. That's a red flag. Well, if you can get him for like cheap, I think that's a guy you could take a shot at the very least. Like
you'd have to get retained though.
Yeah. Well, we saw what Varana.
Voracek's out of the league.
I was thinking maybe something similar to what they did with Varana. Maybe he's kind of maybe a similar. I know it's funny because they were traded for each other.
They were traded for each other, but
Varana
he went to the Blues. But that's there's something going on there. I don't know what.
He had the player assistance thing, but I think the biggest thing before I thought that came out after. I thought he was injury prone before. I thought that, and then he got traded. Then the player assistance stuff came out. Anyways, I don't know.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. He had like shoulder surgery, and then he went through the player assistance program. But then he came back, and then he was playing in the AHL. And then while he was playing in the AHL, it was like, oh, he's gonna get called up soon. But then it was like, he's never gonna play a game for the Red Wings ever again.
Yeah, it's weird.
And then he got sent to St. Louis. So that's a situation I have no inside knowledge on, so I'm not touching. I'm not comfortable touching that one.
Well, moving off of Mantha, then let's last you guys are LeBanc, who we talked about a lot last year, who I liked.
Yeah,
Value comes down a
if you're
ton
able
because
to,
because he doesn't have that extra year attached to him, right? I'd be willing to give a first for him last year. This year, not so much.
I don't think he's quite worth 4.75. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So like if you can get some retained on that one, I think that would be a solid player. We went through him last year. I think there's some good assets to him.
Yeah,
maybe he's not the fastest, but he's an okay skater. He gets around it okay.
And then the last guy is Connor Garland, who I have here on this list of
that's a guy I have to dig
targets.
into more. Interesting enough, I thought he was like a around the net guy, but from what I saw from his shot volume, he's more of a distance shooter. Again, that's a guy I have to dig into more as well. But from what I've seen, I was watching Vancouver. I can't remember why. I was decently impressed with the way he plays.
Yeah, I mean, I remember people being infatuated with him when he was on
Arizona because he signed a 3-year $750K contract and he was producing way above that.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a guy we could look at. But I think similar to
he
what
was
we said
like the
LeBanc,
Chandler Parsons of hockey kind of thing. Because Chandler Parsons, when he was, I can't remember on the Mavs or on the Rockets or something or another, it was like everyone was like, oh, he's the most underpaid player in the league, and that's where he was like held up like to here is he is the most underpaid player in the league, and then he got a big old contract, and then it was just nothing after that.
The Rick Nash effect. You're overrated until you're underrated until you're overrated, or overrated until you're underrated.
Well, it's like, to me, I call it the Chandler Parsons effect, because it's like you're underrated relative to your contract until you're not.
Yeah, exactly. Until you get that
until you sign,
you put, it's like, oh wait, you're just a normal dude who's now getting paid a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, that wraps up. And one more player I didn't have on the list, but I got to shut him out because I mean, Kevin Papetti gave some good insight into it, and the Arizona Coyotes are just an absolute disaster. Nicky Schmaltz, who has the ability listed as a right wing and center, so maybe he could be a guy who comes in and plays center for you. Makes 5.85 for the next 3 years, backloaded contract, so it makes sense for Arizona to move him off.
I don't know how I know this, but his brother tweeted, his brother Jordan, who actually played for the Marlies back a few years ago, was like, I can confirm that Nick Schmaltz will be playing for the Arizona Coyotes next year.
That sucks.
That's a very mid. That's a very mid breaking news, but thank you, Jordan.
All right, so moving off there, let's try and breeze through these free agent wingers quickly. I'm going to kind of bucket them. It looks like Bertuzzi. I don't think Bertuzzi is going to be available. With the news of Taylor Hall being traded, Bertuzzi's probably going to be off the market. You'd think that the Boston.
I think he's going back to Boston. Bertuzzi. That's a player though. Like I did deep dives into Tyler Bertuzzi, Evan Rodriguez, Jason Zucker, and then somewhat into Carson Soucy as well. But we have more time for defensemen. Tyler Bertuzzi, not the fastest player. He's not going to transport the puck up the ice. He's not going to, like, his controlled exits and entries with the puck are very, very low because he's not the greatest skater, pretty clunky, but he is a very smart player. He's a very good playmaker, and like his goal scoring ability is secondary to his game. And still he's going to put up 20 or so goals over an 80 game season next year. I believe he can put up 60 or so points, especially probably more if he plays with Pastrnak. He fit very well with Pastrnak. He's a guy that scans a lot, sees the ice very well, finds space off the puck very well. I really like his routes off the puck. Just a very smart player. And you know what? Like, a lot of people, you hear the name Bertuzzi and you think a big, bad, scary guy, but like, to me, he's more functionally tough. He throws his weight around very functional and very smart. He's good at protecting the puck, and he's good at getting inside leverage on players, and he's got a pretty good stick on him too. So like a smart player, a very, very smart player in my opinion.
Yeah, but again, doesn't
probably 6.
Sucks that he's gone. So I mean, I that's a guy I'd be willing to overpay for right now because I think he fills a big need that we have.
Yeah, it's just the back. We don't know about that back.
Very true. So I mean,
a little bit of a risk, but I'm probably going to say, I'm going to repeat that 4 more times because there's a lot of guys on this list where it's like at one point they were considered injury prone.
Yeah, so let's bucket these 3 older injury prone guys. I guess I don't know if they're injury prone, but yeah, let's bucket them together. Alex Kohler less injury prone, but still gonna bucket him with
Still,
the older
he's got a
dudes.
metal rod in his leg. At
So
one point,
maybe
he broke
injury
his
prone?
leg, and he's like 33. He's a few years older than Tyler Bertuzzi, right?
Yeah.
We saw him a few times against the Leafs. From what I saw, like a good very good forechecking winger. In terms of points for free agents, I believe he leads this free agency class in 5-on-5 points. He had 41 last year, which is pretty good. And he had 19 goals to boot as well. So pretty darn good player.
So I'm gonna bucket him in with Patrick Kane and Tarasenko, who are both guys I think will probably choose not to sign with the Leafs, but those are like kind of the high end wingers that are available. Would you pass on both those guys? I think those guys are both a pass for me.
Yeah, I just think they're gonna price themselves. I obviously like just fit
Yeah.
the player wise, contract aside. I think all 3 would be very, very welcome. It's just like again, like Tarasenko's another really weird one. He had the shoulder injuries to the point where he was exposed in the expansion draft to Seattle. But then the next season, he plays 78 games, has 37 goals. This past season, not bad, 50 points in 69 games. Like we all know, he can shoot the puck. But I think he's staying in New York.
Yeah, and
on a 3-year contract, 5 purse a little rich. But I think that's probably what he's going to get in that ballpark.
Yeah, so
and Patrick Kane, well, how the hell does he recover from this hip thing? Like that's going to be really, really dicey, especially at that age when players suffer that big injury. It's so tough to come back.
Yeah, so out on all those guys. Barbashev, another guy will probably be priced out of.
Priced out of, but he's a good player.
Yeah, and then continuing kind of this injury trend of guys who.
What do you think Barbashev gets?
I don't know. I see the numbers floating around, and I'm like, I don't believe it. So like, it's
6?
it's gonna be close to.
It's crazy, but
what's his name on Colorado? Oh my gosh,
Landeskog?
No, not Landeskog.
Nichushkin.
Nichushkin. Wow, I
can't
speak. Anyways, yeah. So I think he's gonna be close to that.
And Nichushkin's a better defensive player. Barbashev, I think, has more offensive ability.
But I think it's the allure of a guy who is like
he just won the Stanley Cup.
Exactly.
He just put together a very good
really
20 or so game stretch with Jack Eichel. Did his job very, very well with the Golden Knights. But like midway through the season, all these people were throwing up his player cards being like, this guy stinks. Meanwhile, he had 60 points the year before. And then what happened? No, he was good with the Golden Knights. Wow, I'm shocked. Try watching the game, you nerd. Anyways, those cards are effective, but you have to use them with what context. You actually watch on the ice.
It's like saying, listen, it's funny because again,
I literally saw someone post, it was an evolving wild card saying it was Ivan Barbashev's, and at the deadline he said, "Ew, yuck, I would never trade for this player."
Yeah, well, again,
what happened?
It was a good little swing that we got people towards focusing more on analytics, but at the same time, the whole reason why we did that was because everyone only used the eye test. Now people are only using the analytics test. You got to use both. That's the whole idea of the analytics movement, is using both, not using one. So
numbers without context are useless.
Exactly. So 2 more guys who I think are in. There's 3 more guys left in this tier. One, I'm going to give you the floor towards the end, but 2 more guys quickly, injury buckets. But like, I would take shots at them. Max Pacioretty and Connor Brown. Connor Brown sounds like he's going to Edmonton, but like, if you could take a shot on Connor Brown for $2 million at a 1-year deal, where it's like, again, something like, hey, prove that you're still an NHL caliber player and you can play, come to the Leafs. And then other side with Pacioretty, he's hurt.
The whole season.
I mean, I'd be fine giving him a $3 million deal for 1 year, and if he's hurt, he's out. I mean, you just can't put your eggs in that basket.
I know,
but
it's so tough because think about it. Like, he didn't play like at all last year.
Yeah, and
some huge injuries, especially at that age. And then the year before, he only played like 35 games.
Didn't he come back last year, play 1 game, and then got hurt again?
I want to say something like that. I didn't know if it was 1 or 2, but yeah.
Very, very, very injury prone. But again, 2 guys, high upside. Pacioretty's old now, but still like that high upside. And if he's going to get hurt, like the only downside for him to get hurt. So I think Pacioretty is actually the perfect fit for this team because he's a top 6 winger who can score really effectively. Potentially you can play him on the 3rd line and have him score effectively.
Take risks.
and you could probably get him at a low cost because of his injury issues. Worst case scenario, sucks to say, stick him on LTIR. So I like Pacioretty.
Yeah.
Connor Brown, another guy I like. But yeah, last guy I want to talk about here before we get into the lower cost acquisitions in the middle sixes.
Another thing on Connor Brown, I mean, didn't really have injury. I don't think he was really injury prone before he tore his ACL with Washington. It's just a matter of getting back
from a torn
after
ACL.
that. I mean,
yeah,
he's not quite 30 yet, so I think he will. And he's a workhorse too. I have no doubts that Connor Brown will come back pretty strong this year.
Yeah, I just think
not
that he'll
no doubts. I'm confident.
He'll probably get less value though than he probably would have gotten if he played the full season, just because there's that uncertainty there.
I think you were correct in like 1 year,
1 by
2. I don't think he's going to get much term.
Prove it, and then you'll get paid. Because again, like you said, 29. He's gonna be 30. It's not like he would probably be in the range of a 5-year deal anyways before he got hurt. So, moving on from there. Last guy you want to talk about? I'll just give you the floor. Top 6 forward, who some people might not be considered a top 6 guy, but has the ability to play up there. He's a winger. Jason Zucker, take it away.
So Jason Zucker this season, like I'll post a thread on him. The swing from the last 2 years to this year was incredible. Like the last 2 years, he did almost nothing. He was always injured, it seemed like, missed a ton of games. His line mates that he had last year were not very good. I think the most common one was Kasperi Kapanen, I want to say. But then this season, just the uptick in goals, but not only that, the uptick in individual expected goals was huge too. And the one big thing that I noticed, he was healthy all year, 78 games played, which really, really helps you. Cannot state that enough. But his most common line mate this year was Evgeny Malkin. And on the other side, it was either Ricard Raquel or Brian Rust. Evgeny Malkin's still a fantastic hockey player, and he can really get himself the puck. The number of takeaways I saw from Evgeny Malkin in the games that I watched was tremendous. He's still a tremendous player, and he was able to feed Zucker a ton. What do you get with Jason Zucker is good straight line speed. I think his skating is interesting because I don't really love his edge work that much. Like I think he can get to very high speed very fast, but then in terms of like making quick cuts, I think he lacks in that area, and I think that takes away from his ability to create space. The Penguins really loved him, just putting him on the fly in terms of like pushing back the defensemen to give their own D-men some room to break out. But yeah, the one thing I loved, his shot, his one-timer especially was tremendous. The speed, as I mentioned before, his hands in tight were really, really nice too. Just again, not much of a playmaker. Throws the body a lot too, which was really fun to watch. Not much of a playmaker. Can get himself the puck though, and some goal scoring ability. 13th in the league this year in 5-on-5 goals. So interesting player, but how much of that was Malkin? Can he play with non-elite players and put up points? Not really. So if he doesn't fit in your top 6, buyer beware.
Fair enough. So opinion. 31 years old, left winger, is looking projected from Daily Faceoff. Going to just use this because I don't know. It's too hard to project these numbers. 5 by 5.4 mil. Would you sign?
Actually, Evolving Wild, I believe, had him at 5.5 for like 3 or 4 years.
Okay, let's say 5.5 for 4 years then.
I think
meet in the middle.
I'm more comfortable at 4 with him. I think 5 is an overpayment, and like, who's your second line center? I think he could work well with a Ryan O'Reilly, who can get him the puck and who's a good playmaker. But can he work well with John Tavares? I don't know about that one. And can he stay healthy? I'd kind of bet on no. Simply 31, 2 injury-prone seasons. The one before this one. Was this year a fluke? It'll be interesting to see what happens with him.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, moving off the, let's call them big fish, the big fish forwards that the Leafs would probably target in free agency and center. Let's take a look at like the middle 6 / low cost acquisitions, and we'll try and breeze through these guys as quickly as we can. But just let's start off with the trademark, because we kind of did that last time. Looking at it, there's kind of 2 aging centers that I think I'm going to put in a bucket together, and that's Adam Henrique and Scott Laughton. I think those guys are probably going to be your third line forward if they were to come to the team. Adam Henrique, I'm not so much of a fan on.
Dom Luszczyszyn on the PDO cast called Scott Laughton the most mid player ever. He's just okay.
So is that I thought Scott Laughton might be a good acquisition at
He's okay. I
for
mean,
the third
but
line,
they're turning
but
down first round picks for him.
okay, so if that's the acquisition cost, then yikes, get out of here. I thought this guy's gonna be a low cost
Like
guy.
he's worth $3 million.
I wasn't. Yeah.
He's
So
okay.
and he's making 3x3, and he's relatively older. He's 29, turning 30, I believe. So out on both these guys then.
For the acquisition cost, yeah, I think I would
okay.
pay a second-ish for him. I don't know, but he's still got term left. How much term does he have?
3 years.
Oh wow, I thought it was only one.
Yeah, I think that's why the asking cost is so high. But also, like, do you really care about term if you're not
wouldn't-
getting value over value on his contract dollar? Probably not. At least I don't think that matters.
Yeah,
So
if it's just like very okay, it's like whatever.
yeah, so let's call out on Henrique and Scott Laughton. And just like that, the center pool
Henrique
gets
is too
thinner.
slow. You can't. Yeah, he's just way too slow, and he's a product.
Yeah,
of Troy Terry, from what I watched.
I really don't know what this team is going to do with their centermans because, like, again, it's just not many sexy ones available. So I'm starting to, after doing this, talking through this through, I'm starting to lean towards John Tavares taking at center. So anyways, moving off that.
That's what I was telling you.
Fair enough. So a couple wingers I see as low cost acquisitions, probably because of the situations that they're in with the team. Kyler Yamamoto is someone who looks like it's probably going to be a cap dump. Warren Fogle, same suit. Edmonton wants to probably move off one or two of those guys. I heard Yamamoto might get even bought out.
I heard bought out too.
If he's cheap, if you can get him cheap, like, and if them retaining half gets you Yamamoto for free, I wouldn't say no to that. Like, would they
retain? That'd be interesting.
So,
so he's at like 3.5 right now, 3.25,
3.1 by 1. And the reason why I said that they would retain is I don't know what the buyout structure would look like, but if the buyout is like more than what they would get at half retained, I could see them just dumping him half retained for free, right?
Possibly, yeah.
If you're a team that's interested in him, so
I'd have to watch more than. I'd have to watch more of him because like the production wise, like where does he really like? To me, he's kind of like an awkward fit. Like, is he a defensive guy? Is he an offensive guy? Is he a puck carrier? I haven't watched enough to make a determination.
He's kind of like he's one of those guys, like not the same playing style, but like guys we've seen throughout the years of the Leafs, of like those mid-$3 million players who are just, that's exactly what they are.
Yeah.
Sharon Govich, Andreas Janssen.
Once you get into cap trouble, they're out the door.
Exactly. They're out the door. We cannot afford those guys anymore. We can't afford to take a risk on those guys. So Warren Fogle, I think I'd be more willing to get because I think he has
how much is he?
He is 2.75 by 1. So just like $250K less. But I think he has like a little bit more of a defensive upside, I want to say. And I think he is maybe a better scoring touch. I might be completely wrong,
but not
that. But
not much.
Exactly. So again, both guys are interested. And then the last guy, Barclay Goodrow. Are you interested in that at all? The guy who got that big ticket deal in free agency, 3.64 by 7 mil, 4 years.
Much.
Nope, too much. All right.
That's way too much term.
Last guy on the list, and this is a guy I think I'd want the Leafs to get, and I think they'd probably get him for relatively cheap. His name is Ross Colton from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Our rivals, I guess. Are we rivals with them? I don't know. Anyways, Ross Colton. He is 26 years old. He's probably going to get a qualifying offer. He's going to get a qualifying offer at 1.125, and that will walk him directly to free agency. He's 26 years old. Now, the reason why I bring him up is because what do the Tampa Bay Lightning see in Ross Colton? Is it valuable for them to keep Ross Colton? Because the way I look at their roster construction, he could potentially be on the fourth line, right? They don't go out and acquire a guy and pay the acquisition cost that they did for, oh my goodness, what's his name?
Tanner Jeannot. Tanner Jeannot?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So they don't go out and acquire a guy like Tanner Jeannot for no reason, right? So their top 9 is pretty much filled up with Tanner Jeannot. So, I mean,
really?
There's only one spot for him and be on that third line with Jeannot and Paul. But I think they might take the value of Michael Isamont at $800K, who they played on the third line quite a bit in the playoffs for the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think they'd rather take the 2 years at $800K than walk Colton to free agency and get nothing for him. So I think what they in their mind is they're going to ship him out, and I don't think you'll need a first round pick to get him. Honestly, I really don't. So if you can get him for less than a first round pick, I'd be all over Ross Colton. One, because I think he's a really good player. Not really good, but I think he's a good enough player that he'd fit with the mold of this team. He has that two-way ability that I think helps championship teams thrive in the playoffs. And he has the ability to potentially play center. He played center before. So I think
a little bit, yeah.
He might be the perfect guy for the Leafs to get. Any thoughts on him? And we would walk him right to free agency too.
Yeah, if you're forced to walk him to free agency and if you can get him for less than a first, I think it's a decent dart throw. Why not? I wonder. How old did you say? 26? He's a 96 born?
96 born, 26.
He's a lot older than I thought. I don't know why
Right?
I thought he was a late bloomer kind of thing.
Yeah, he came up 3 years ago. Only had he came up in the playoffs 3 years ago, and then first full season was 21-22. So
what's his contract like? 1.2, you said?
So his qualifying offer is 1.25. For 1 year. So it would be. So
yeah, I would. I wonder if you can get him for less than. I would think so, right?
Yeah. The only problem is he's in arbitration.
That's a good
right now,
contract.
which I didn't factor in, but he only 32 points and 39 points the last 2 years. I don't think he'll get a lot in arbitration.
32 in 82 or 77 or whatever.
32 and 81, 39 and 79.
Would Tampa be willing to give him up for that much? Because he's probably going to get like 2 or 3 in ARB. No,
well, I think you'd probably get closer to 2 than 3. But also, if you're the Tampa Bay Lightning, you also have Tanner Jeannot, who you got to sign, and you have how much cap space? 450K cap space right now.
So, okay.
And they need to sign a couple.
So hopefully you can take advantage of that. I would like that. I think
I
Ross
might be off here, but I think that's quick math there. But yeah,
so say 2 mil.
Yeah,
Ross Colton,
second round pick for Ross
for a second and a third, probably.
Yeah.
I think that'd be okay. Less than a first, yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, moving off of those middle six low cost acquisition trade targets. Let's look at some free agents, and we'll breeze through these guys quickly because there's not that many really available that are interesting to me.
Evan Rodriguez, I got to watch again, as I mentioned earlier in the episode. Terrible finishing ability, pretty good skater. I mean, yeah, he was a pretty good skater, like in terms of speed and edge work and all of that. The one thing that was interesting watching him, he doesn't hit very much at all in the regular season. In the playoffs, he turns it up very nicely, and I like when he hits because he did it quite effectively. Caused a little bit of havoc here and there. But again, small player that's kind of easily knocked down, doesn't really get to the net all that much. A decent playmaker, I would say, a pretty decent passer. One thing that I found very interesting, like again, as I mentioned, 412th in the league in shooting percentage. On the power play, though, was second on the Avs in goals per 60 on the power play. And that was all just came from the one-timer. When he one-times the puck, all of a sudden, all this velocity comes out of nowhere. And he's able to put the puck in. But again, I think priced out from the Leafs in terms of 39 points in 60 some odd games, but he was playing like 17 something. Another guy I watched from the Avs, JT Compher, a product of Nichushkin, I just got to say. Was pretty good at in tight getting open, but more so was just a product of Nichushkin. I didn't see enough physical skill from him to really fall in love with what he did. Like defensive numbers were pretty good this year, but then when you looked at last year when he didn't have those great line mates, they weren't that good. So it was like, I don't know. I don't think he's a 52-point center. I'll tell you that for free.
Yeah, JT Compher,
an okay third line center.
Yeah, and
they can kind of put the puck in around the net.
He's the best, like young guy who's like fresh off their RFA deals, like young center available, I think right now, and he's gonna
get 95
paid,
born, right?
So yeah, he's 28, so he's projected to get like 5 by 5.3.
That's way too much, in my opinion.
Yeah, a little bit too much there. So, moving on from those guys, I think the only other centers we can even touch on are Engvall, who we kind of touched on already.
He's a winger too,
and Teddy Bluge.
Engvall, I mean, think about it, like 15 5-on-5 goals this year he finished with. He's big. He got some scoring ability, although it disappears at times because he's more of a distance shooter.
You're not going to lull me back into wanting Engvall. I'm not going to allow you to do that.
Transports the puck pretty well. Again, he's just not like his thinking isn't quick enough. at both ends of the ice, and he's not much of a playmaker. And he's just got that. He's inconsistent at times. At times you want to beat him up, even though he's 6'4".
Yeah,
So
fair enough. And then I guess last wingers we can touch on.
what about Miles Wood?
Miles Wood.
He's a free agent.
Is he a UFA?
Yes, 24 5-on-5 points this year, 11 goals. I think Devils fans were very, very frustrated with him at times, it seemed like. He had that big, he had a two, again, this is another injury prone guy though. Like, played 74 games this year, but what he played 3 games the year before?
Yeah.
What really is he? How healthy can he be? Was this year was he slowed down this year from the hip injury? Like sometimes he's like, to go through a baseball reference, like Matt Chapman from last year to this year, he was coming off hip injury. Like, I don't know. Does it make a difference? I'm not a doctor. I'm just making shit up.
I don't know. I'm like more so out on Miles Wood because I think he'll probably be. I don't know. How much do you think he'll cost? I just don't think he's that good. Honestly, he has like.
Oh yeah.
He has this like.
Okay.
Wasn't it? Didn't he score like 9 goals at the beginning of the year and then just?
Yes.
Didn't like he? It seems like he's like
he was scratched in the playoffs, I believe.
Yeah, he's like an incredibly hot shooter who had like 19 goals a year, going a massive shooting percentage bump. Career, I think he shot like 8%. So like to expect him to be like an above average shooter is like fool's gold, I think. And I don't think I don't think he like. I don't know how good his shooting is, but like, does he have like playmaking ability? I don't really see the offensive upside there. Defensive, like he's not a 2-way forward. So like for me, I think he's like fool's gold, honestly.
Interesting. Yeah. That's a good point. What about Thomas Tatar? Another Devil.
Man, I don't know. I'd have to look more into Thomas Tatar, but I like remembering back at the player he was, like for cheap, I wouldn't mind him, but like it's not really someone.
15 5-on-5 goals this year. I mean, but in terms of this week free agency class, when you look at it, goals per 60, he's 15th.
So then maybe I'd take a stab at him. I mean, like he seems like someone who's like damaged goods. I keep hitting my mic. Sorry. He seems like he's damaged goods because he's like
just never scores in the playoffs.
Yeah, the amount of teams he's been to, never scored in the playoffs. The whole like Vegas saga for him, where he was like traded, got a haul for him, then like shipped him out almost immediately for nothing. I think like he's a guy who you can surround with good players and maybe be like perform better than his contract, especially if he's going to go for cheap. So I don't know. I don't really know much about him, but like he screams like a guy like who could be undervalued because of the league perception of him. But his talent,
if you can get him for cheap, sure.
That's the big.
I mean, we said this 2 years ago though, and then he went for 4.25.
That's true. That's true.
So my last name I have here is Ryan Donato. What do you think about him? Quite an interesting curve over the past 4 years.
I don't know. He's like a really weird player because he like looked interesting in Boston, like then seemed to fall out of favors. I think it was at San Jose, and then like kind of had a little mini renaissance with the Seattle Kraken. I don't think he's more than like I don't think he's someone you want to be playing on your third line. I think his best suit is like a fourth line player where he can kind of be the best player on the ice and perform well. I haven't watched a lot of him, so I don't really know too much about him. Maybe you can share more about him.
I haven't dug into him a ton. I just have here on my free agency list, like 5-on-5 goals per 60. He's second actually behind Jason Zucker.
Yeah, that's one. He's always had that high upside of goal scoring. I remember being like really fascinated with him.
Except for one year, Minnesota, he had 5 goals one year, and his shooting percentage dropped from like typically 14 to 5. I don't know what the hell happened in Minnesota, but then was right back up with the Kraken.
Yeah, so I mean, like if we're looking like it's been a problem for this team for a while is like the depth guys who you want to be able to put up points. Like this is a guy who is a depth player who can score, like shooting at a 10%, like 11% clip. Sorry, 10% clip on his career is an above, like about I think that's above average league shooting percentage. So in a fourth line role, that's pretty good. Like, I mean, what is he? He had 65 goals in 325 games as like a fourth line player and averaging like, he only gets like 12 minutes a night. Like that's
it's like, why does he get 12 minutes a night? But when you look at also like points per 60 at 5-on-5, he was 6th. So it's a guy I would like to look into more to see why is this guy playing fourth line. But this is some interesting hidden numbers here, are they not?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something that we definitely should be taking a stab at. And
Especially if
look
you
at.
it
Like,
doesn't cost very much, right?
yeah, especially if he's super cheap. I mean, anyone else you want to mention on this list here? Or?
Um, nobody huge. Yeah,
All
I
right.
think that was it. Maybe Danton Heinen. I mean, again, that's just another mid player though. Like he's very okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap it up then. If you made it this far, thank you so much for
Yeah.
listening. Make sure you drop a comment on which of the players you like that we've mentioned, and if we missed out on any of your favorite UFA or trade targets, why don't you drop them below? Send us mock trades for these guys if you want, whatever you want in the comment section. Fire it down below. Smash the like button on the way out. Hit the subscribe button as well, and ring that notification bell to be notified when we drop the defenseman video on Friday. So, I mean, it's the draft day today. Let's hope for like before we go.
Chaos.
Quick question: Do the Leafs draft in the first round, or are we going to see a trade back? What do we think?
I'm just gonna stick with trade back, in my
All
opinion.
right, I'm going with that as well. I think Treliving is going to do the McMahon strut down to the
Watch
draft
for maybe
table.
Colorado. Colorado now has the 31st pick. Maybe they want to trade up.
Yeah, maybe, or
We'll
maybe
see.
we do. Maybe we do something like we did with Mrazek last year in a trade back scenario to dump more salary. So, anyways, I think.
Anyways,
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks everyone for listening.
Go Leafs, go.